Good evening, everybody. My name is Jose Echevarria, and I'm here to propose to you the lowering of the national drinking age back to 18. Probably wondering why I said back to 18. Well, as we look into a brief history into the United States and their minimum age drinking, we find that in 1933, with the prohibition of alcohol, they initially allowed it to be 21 because it aligned with their voting age. In 1970, they lowered the voting age to 18. Also, they lowered the drinking age to 18. Because it aligned with the drinking age, when you could sign up for the draft, when you could be, make most major decisions as an adult. In 1984, there was a big push for reform for the drinking age, and ultimately, the National Minimum Drinking Age Act was passed. Now, also additionally, any state that didn't comply with this act had to face a 10% penalty on highway funds. So out of the 50 states, do you think any of them chose not to comply with this act? No, they didn't. The only state that did not comply was Puerto Rico, state commonwealth. So, is this effective? According to the National Center of Addiction and Substance Abuse, underage drinking accounts for 17.5% of consumer spending for alcohol in the United States. Now, this may seem like a relatively small number out of 100%, but when we look at the dollar value to this, we find that underage drinking computes to 22.5 billion, yes, I said billion with a B, $22.5 billion of consumer spending in the United States is from underage drinkers. In 2006, the National Center of Addiction and Substance Abuse also found that 72.2% of 12th graders reported drinking alcohol at some point in their lives. So, back to the question, is it effective? Is it deterring youth? Is it deterring youth from drinking? As we look at these numbers, we see that in actuality, the alcohol industry benefits greatly from our underage drinkers. And not surprisingly, most 12th graders reported that they have taken a drink before. And probably most of us in this class on the college campus, that for freshmen, sophomores, straight out of high school, probably 16, most of us have seen it, have been around environments where we could get a drink. Drinking has not been hard to access. It isn't hard to access. Which leads us, well, the other side may argue, well, maybe we should enforce it harder. It should be hard to access. Well, how is it enforced? An estimated, and this is after a study done by Wolfson, Wagner, and Hornseth on the views on enforcement of the minimum drinking age, they found that an estimated 2 of every 1,000 occasions of illegal drinking are actually resulting in an arrest. I mean, 2 of every 1,000. Just think about the odds there. That's less than 0.2%. Don't quote me on my math. Sorry. United States, they also found that according to the law, as we look into some of the countries or our states' laws, we find that in the United States, underage drinking is allowed in 29 states as long as it's done on private premises with parental guidance. 25 states allow it for religious purposes, and 11 states allow it for educational purposes. Now, I don't know about you, but I want to find those 11 states so I can sign up for a class and get a drink. But in all seriousness, it's not really enforced. Yes, the drinking is enforced once you're drunk. You know that the punishment for being drunk and driving and drunk and disorderly is enforced. But buying an underage drink, there's not enough resources or time for law enforcement to allocate the time to stop it. You know, the paperwork that's involved is often not. It doesn't weigh out with the seriousness of the crime, unfortunately. So it's very literal enforced, and oftentimes we would find that, you know, and I know this from working with youth for 4 years, that most of the time when an officer encounters a young offender with a crime that he could let him get away with, he's a little bit reluctant to charge him with a crime that he feels may mess up his life. And with the United States underage drinking laws in each of these states, we're already fostering an environment for underage drinking in more than half of the states. Why not just make it 18? And you know, those parents that allow their kids to drink should be able to trust their kids when they go to college and not have to worry about them, you know, going to jail for underage drinking when the child has been raised drinking in their household for many years. So, you know, you're probably looking at me like, okay, genius, it's not enforced, it's not effective. What does help? Well, the Huffington Post did a study and found that strategies based on harm reduction and environmental management are a little bit more successful in reducing alcohol abuse. My personal opinion is that we should be ensuring that bars and restaurants are indeed safe environments for drinking. That should be our focus. You know, date rape. Are we patting down club people going into the club before they enter the club? Are we taking enough advanced security measures? Because whether you're 18 or 21, the stats are, you know, the likelihood of you getting into an encounter is pretty high. A negative encounter. USA.gov did find that Australia has successfully implemented alcohol education programs that focus on reducing risk and promoting responsible drinking. They include role playing, they include interactive teaching, and the biggest thing for me, what I found, is that they start from a younger age. And I think this is very important when we're talking about how can we actually stop irresponsible drinking. Because when we start young with our youth, not when I remember first getting an alcohol education class around like 14, 15. It was already too late for me, 15, 16. we were already talking about getting drunk back then. As a teenager, we were already. It was too late. It was it was too late. We had already gotten a drink, and it you know we kind of felt, as being young and dumb, you feel like you're a teenager, and you don't have to listen to anybody. But when you start from the grassroots, when you start from a younger age, just teaching kids, okay, this is a risky situation you're going to encounter once you are older, and you need to know how to be prepared and how to handle it. Then that is when we make more responsible decisions, or it helps. So in conclusion, the current drinking age is not really effective. It doesn't really deter kids between 18 and 20 from drinking. If it's available, we're going to drink. And it's not hard to get. It is under enforced. So not only is it easy for an underage drinker to get alcohol, it is not very enforced by law enforcement. So we have this law here that underage drinkers are not afraid of, and that law enforcement doesn't enforce. And we're telling young adults that you are old enough to vote and pick a commander-in-chief and pick someone to run for this country. We're telling them that you are old enough to sign a contract and die for this country. But you are not old enough or responsible enough to have a drink. Age is not the issue. Education is. We need to teach our kids, our youth, how to be responsible drinkers. Not tell them that they will be more responsible drinkers because they just got a little bit older. That is my proposal for lowering the minimum drinking age back to 18. Thank you for your time.